Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how are you doing, mate?
Mate, I'm very good. I'm very good indeed. It's been again, we said this on the last podcast, didn't we, mate? It feels like, the stars have got to align for me and you to come together on a podcast. It feels like football has just got to enter the complete stratosphere for you and I to be able to pick up the mic and be like, right, we've got to do a podcast. And we're sat here today with an absolute plethora of topics to get our teeth into. But you already know what I want to hear about first, mate. It's I was just, for everyone listening, I was just speaking to Dan about this off air and he was getting so giddy. He was like, nah, I've got to save it for the podcast. Because I feel like we would have been sat here for 2 hours just talking about it before we even get this recorded. But, mate, obviously you were there at Wembley, England 2-0 journey. One of the there's been so many times, mate, throughout this season where I've been green with envy listening to you sit here. But you've gone to a game that I haven't been able to go to. Not only was it all the behind closed door stuff with the Villa, but now, you jammy bastard, you went and landed tickets for one of the most significant England games in history. And how did you do it, mate?
Finesse, mate. Do you know what it is? I think, first of all, I've got to preface this with, as I have with all the other games, Dan, about how lucky I have been to be able to get tickets for this game, because I tweeted about it and like a fair few people, I've had about 20 messages since I tweeted about the fact that I was going to the game. People were like, have you got tickets? Da 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 da. And I mean, this was something we were talking about, Dan, probably about a month ago, wasn't it? Like in the lead up to the tournament, we were saying how sick it'd be if we could actually get to a game, regardless of what game it is, like let alone fucking England, Germany. Like, oh my God. And we weren't really quite sure how the whole thing worked. So a few weeks after we sort of had our discussion about trying, it weren't even a discussion. It was, wouldn't it be sick if we could go and, watch a game together and just, make some content. I registered a UEFA account and it said you needed an access code. And I was like, well, I've not got an access code, so I guess it's hard luck. And then a lad who went to uni with us, Kiefer, tweeted he got tickets for the Italy game the other day. The Italy,
Austria. Is it Austria?
That's the one. Italy, Austria at Wembley. And as soon as he tweeted that, I thought, that sounds really nice. So I kind of took myself away because it was at Charlotte's. It was her birthday. I was like, just going to the toilet. Checking tickets for Italy, Austria, like 4 days later.
Man.
And England tickets popped up. So I put them in the basket. I was like, babe, we're going to London. You wanted to go to London? We're going to London. She's like, great. I'm like, we're going to watch England, Germany. And that's just, well, obviously we didn't know it was Germany at the time because the group stages hadn't finished yet. But we knew it was a group of death contestant. And she was gassed. I'm gassed. A lot of people who had tickets originally for the game and had them cancelled were supposed to have priority access. And there was a lot of sort of arguing going on the Twitter thread that I posted. And I did feel a bit bad, but that's not my fault. That's on UEFA. But yeah, it just total chance, mate. Just refreshing the website, looking for Italy tickets, and there I am managing to bag tickets for England Journey.
Wow.
It was
amazing, mate. Amazing.
It really was, and it's before the game, I think we spoke about it on the podcast as well, Dan, didn't we? We really didn't fancy England's chances, in terms of who they would face out of that group of death. And they've had no survivors now, haven't they? Switzerland knocked France out. We've knocked Germany out. Portugal didn't make it out the group, obviously. They got Portugal. They got knocked out by Belgium, didn't they? Of course, there's been so many games. It's all just kind of merging into one at this point. And yeah, no, it was incredible. As I was saying to you off air, Dan, international football, whenever the tournament rolls around, I love it. I'm fully immersed myself in it. I've got a lot of time for the fans who go for all of the friendlies, for the qualifying games, when you're playing the likes of Estonia and that. People showing up at Wembley on a Wednesday night to watch them kind of games, mad respect, especially with how much these past 3 days have cost me, Dan. I'm absolutely bankrupt at the moment. But it was crazy. There was just so much on this game, wasn't there, Dan? Especially with the game that we have coming up on the weekend, and the potential semi-final and final games that we can have. You know, things have kind of shaped up a bit nicely on the other side of the tournament tree, obviously, as we just alluded to there with France kind of coming out. But, you know, England beat Ukraine here, then I believe we play, it's either Czech Republic or
Denmark.
And I mean, there's no such thing as an easy game. We definitely have the easier on paper route to the final, Dan, but it felt quite cathartic being there and knowing that if we can beat Germany, there is a very good chance that England can go on and win the whole thing.
You're absolutely right, mate. You're absolutely right. And I think the important thing here, and this is a rare moment in the tournament where I think fans and the playing staff and the coaching staff and everybody involved, from, as I said, the fan level to Harry Kane walking out with the armband, feels exactly the same problem. It's how you deal with that complacency, because it's so easy to think, yeah, we've done the hard work now. We've beaten Germany, and you sort of, it's almost been spoken about as a sort of a free ticket to the final, hasn't it? But in reality, we've got to play two very difficult games between now and then. We've got to play this Ukraine side, which are a hugely interesting side. So many interesting players. And we've got to face a few sides now who, and this is the best thing about talking about football, mate, it's the sides who come with the narrative, right? So you've got Ukraine led by Andrei Shevchenko, that's a story that writes itself, isn't it? This is a man that not only dragged Ukraine to a first ever World Cup quarterfinal in their history as a player, has now done it in the Euros as a manager. Amazing narrative. You've then got Denmark. It's self-explanatory. I think, every single neutral now whose team has been knocked out is rooting for the Danes because of everything that happened to Christian Eriksen. Czech Republic are on this sort of amazing for all where no one really expected too much of them. They were in a difficult group with England and Croatia. They've got some players that have really come out of the woodwork. I mean, Patrick Schick, we all knew was a good player, but no one knew he was light up the Euros good. So England have now got to overcome these opponents who are really starting to believe in themselves, have got some great storylines behind them. But I'm just really excited for the games, mate. I don't think we're going to particularly blow these teams away. I think we're going to see some sides operate in a low block and make it very difficult for England. And we've seen that can be difficult to break down. And I've gone from thinking of England quite negatively in that regard, in that they struggle to break down teams with the low block. But I've sort of come around to thinking that actually it's a very difficult thing to do. Look at France and Switzerland and those kind of teams, whereby when teams of an international standard defend well, no matter who you are, it can be difficult to break down. So England have just got to play their best player to create those chances. I'll say no more. And just edge by these teams as we did in the group, I think, mate.
Do we think that, I think with, of course, with hindsight, we can really praise Gareth Southgate, Dan, and on how the game plan was executed against Germany, because we would have had completely different experiences watching the game, in just sort of seeing how it unfolded at the time. I mean, I was right at the back, so you can literally see everything. And I said right from the start, in days before I even tweeted, you have to match Germany with the system. You have to go 3-4-3, and you have to pin back Gosens and Kimmich. I mean, Kimmich was neutralised to a point where he just became a third central midfielder, essentially, wasn't he? He didn't really kind of operate as that wing back until Jack came on the pitch, and we all know what happened when Jack came on the pitch. But I think Gareth got it spot on. I think we have to say that, Dan, because we've been very critical in the past as well. However, if it isn't 4-2-3-1 against the Ukraine with Jack starting on the left, I think we riot, don't we?
Well, this is the thing, mate. This is the thing, is that I'm still not convinced that there's enough that exists between midfield and attack. I think we scored both goals when we had that link when Jack comes on, and we've seen that he can operate as the sort of A to B and sort of play in that hole. And I think the problem is that whilst Phillips and Rice offer a sturdiness to England and a resilience and a real tenacity in that midfield, I don't think that it offers the ability to break the sides down that play in the low block that we're expecting over the next few games. Because the way that the wingers operate, especially in Saka and Sterling and in those inverted wingers, it does sort of vacate a lot of space, particularly sort of in the wings and in those sort of central to 10 kind of areas. I'm not necessarily convinced that Rice or Phillips have the capacity to operate in those situations. So we definitely need someone that can come in and play that role. I think the problem is with Jack is that, Southgate's favourite Mason Mount is returning, and, Phil Foden didn't even get a sniff in the Germany game whatsoever. So, again, he's facing that similar competition, but I don't know what more Jack has to do at this game, but, is he merging into a super sub role? Is that what he's kind of being groomed for here? I don't know. And it's going to be a very interesting team selection on Saturday night.
It is. And, I think we all will be waiting in anticipation. I think, Gareth has earned our trust at this point. We have to say that at least. I think whatever happens, I'm feeling more confident than I was a few weeks ago, Dan, that Gareth is the man to navigate us towards the final, which is something I don't think I would have been saying a few weeks ago.
That's a Steve Bruce there or thereabouts you've just delivered there, mate. That's what that is.
I've said I back you without saying I back you, Gareth. You're not wrong, mate. You're not wrong. But listen, as exciting as the Euros has been, Dan, and the tournament as a whole, wonderful. It's been brilliant, Dan. It honestly has been so good. We have some news, transfer rumour mill. You guys would have seen the title by now. You know who we're going to be talking about. Dan, actually, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one. Who are we going to go with first? Who are we going to give our deep dive, our opinion, our expert knowledge on these potential transfer rumour mills, Dan? Let's see who you want to go with first.
I think we go with the Darren Deco, mate. I think we go straight in with Todd Cantwell, who is a player that it's a little bit interesting. The sort of, I don't know whether it's because of the way that Villa have come on in sort of the last couple of years, or whether I don't think that he's quite had this season that I expected from him in the Championship. But I was really quite keen on Todd Cantwell when he played, when Norwich won the Premier League. I liked a lot about what he did. I think, at the age he was just sort of 21, 22 at the time. He'd just come off a loan to Germany as well. And I always respect players greatly when they go out and do things like that. He'd just have a loan with Fortuna Sittard in Germany. I think they were in the Bundesliga 2 at the time. He came into the Premier League and he just played with a confidence. He is quite an arrogant personality, which I don't think is the worst thing in football a lot of the time. It's sort of, it makes players sort of Marmite characters, I think. But I'm quite endeared to them, I think. And he played with that confidence and directness. I love how he took players on. He did well. He scored. In fact, he scored the same goals in the Premier League as he did in the Championship. He got 6 for Norwich in both seasons. And overall, I considered it quite a promising year. And I was really keen on him. But he sort of, I don't know whether it was because, Emi Buendia, who funnily enough, obviously is a Villa player now, that he sort of fell into that shadow a little bit, but he went off the radar a little bit in the Championship, didn't he? And so I think that's made me perhaps a little bit less hot on this deal, but it's an interesting profile because the Smith Rowe deal doesn't, that always felt like a bit of a pipe dream. So do you think perhaps this is a more realistic sort of mould for that kind of created central come wide player that Villa seem to be in the market for?
I think so, but, then again, Dan, we've had a second bid rejected for Smith Rowe, and there's no smoke without fire. You never know. As you say, I don't feel like Villa will land. I don't know. I feel like if it's one of them ones, if someone says no with these kind of deals, you generally, you don't go back unless you're hearing something. So whether, again, that is the agent that is using Villa for leverage with this contract, because he's rebuffed 3 contracts, I believe, now since the turn of the year. We don't know, but especially with Villa, first of all, it's very rare to hear of a bid in any case, let alone a return bid. So whether there is something in that, again, we don't know. We aren't in the know. We are reporting on the news that we are seeing. But Todd Cantwell, maybe a cheaper alternative, maybe not, because I think what you have to look at is the recruitment strategy from Norwich. over the years, obviously Todd Cantwell is a player that they've developed who's come through their academy, very much in the build of, James Maddison from when they've signed him. They've got Emi Buendia. They have the kind of profile of a player down to a T that they know they can sort of maximise and get the most out of their ability, at the very least in the Championship, which will, provide them with a sell-on fee, as we can see with Emi Buendia. That has worked out very nicely for Norwich. Now, I do think, Dan, we have the better winger come 10 from Norwich from the last 2 seasons. I think we've already acquired him. However, there's a lot to like about Todd Cantwell, and I feel like he would be more open to a move to Villa. Of course, now El Mohammadi's contract has expired. As we remember, he famously rustled the feathers of a young Todd Cantwell at Villa Park on a number of occasions, I think, actually. I think he threw the ball away from him when he was doing a throw-in, didn't he? And Cantwell squared up to him, and it was all quite cute because he's like 18 at the time, I think. And obviously it's just El Mohammadi being El Mohammadi, really showing his showing his age. It's nice to see, and he's grown up a lot from there. Cantwell's a very good player, and yeah, as you kind of touched on there, Dan, he has had a quieter season than I think a lot of people expected. I feel like Norwich kind of came out all guns blazing. They were playing this attacking football when they did get promoted in that season, and straight away it was Cantwell, Pookie. These guys are great. I mean, of course, Dan, we saw the brilliance of Todd Cantwell in the Championship the season before, and it was a kind of will he, won't he? He's not really convinced at the moment that he's made the step up. However, I think one thing we have to acknowledge, Dan, Dean Smith improves football players, and he's not getting the credit for this. I saw someone tweet about the the sort of respect that Smith is due for developing these kind of players. People don't really tend to talk about it, but he's built very much in the vein of a Jack Grealish, short socks, long hair, and all. He's playing. There's so many parallels to draw. Playing on that left hand side, coming in, operating in that number 10 come wing role. England under 21 international, been away, played tournament football, come close to getting a call up to the first team on a few occasions in the 2 years previous to this, Dan. Sofa score having valued at around 19 million euros. I feel like, you're looking at about 50 million pounds there. That, of course, that Norwich would be commanding a much higher fee than that, but it's less than the 30 million bid that's been rebuffed for Smith Rowe. It almost seems like a no-brainer.
I think this is a very interesting deal, mate. And I think Norwich, when you lose a player like Buendia, you're perhaps, I know this might sound crazy, but you're perhaps more inclined to go and sell another winger, because it's that sort of in for a penny, in for a pound situation, whereby if you then increase the revenue, coming in, you can then increase the transfer outlay that you've got to go and spend on a player. And so you can perhaps go and pick up 2 recruitments with a net fee that might have been better than the one replacement that you were planning to recruit anyway. So it maybe heightens the replacement that they can get from Buendia, and so can actually sort of work in Villa's favour. But I think he did 6 goals, 7 assists in the championships last season, which is a respectable haul. He struggled quite a bit with injuries as well. Missed about 7 games with a hip injury back in sort of November, December time, and then 3 games with a knee injury way back in September, October. But he closed out the season in very good vein, which is always good to see. I think, especially as that pressure mounts in the Championship. We've seen teams slip away at the top and lose leads. Quite ironically, I meant LEADS, but I mean Leeds sort of fit that bill anyway, don't they? Really.
Yeah.
No, I remember watching a 7-0 win for Norwich. They played Huddersfield, I think. Huddersfield. Yeah. They beat him 7-0 in April. He got a goal and assist in that game, and he was great. And I still think there's definitely a player there. I think he would be a brilliant role player for Villa, which I think is sort of where he would be. I think he would. I don't think we're signing a starting 11 player here. But so, you know what, mate? Maybe I was a little bit critical early on. If the price is right, I think it'd be good to see Villa go for this deal.
It would, man. And again, it all comes down to if the price is right. I think it's Again, you've got everyone. Oh, it's spending the Grealish money. Shut up! Like we're rich. We're rich. We can spend whatever we want. We've got a lot of big earners off the wage bill. We have the third richest owners in the country. Please, guys, just allow it, man. Let Villa go and buy up all the talent in the league. You know, you enjoy Leicester's smart recruitment. Enjoy ours. Just enjoy it, neutral fans, please. I beg. Anyway, Dan, I think we move on to the second player now. Maybe on paper, the more underwhelming of the pair. However, Harry Winks, a player who emerged through Tottenham's academy with a lot of promise. He's played a lot of games for Tottenham. Almost, one of Mauricio Pochettino's children. The man loved Harry Winks. And, Harry Winks, I genuinely, hand on my heart, believe there is a player in there. I really do. I think if a manager like Pep Guardiola got his hands on Harry Winks, he'd be the best midfielder in the world. Like, there's so much untapped potential with Harry Winks. He's just never quite lived up to it. So it could be a potentially risky one, Dan. How are you feeling about this? Because, again, this is, I think it was reported by Mike McGrath 2 days ago now it would have been. It seems like it almost, I don't want to say it seems like a Ross Barkley type move, but it gives me the same vibes. Let's rehabilitate a mid to late 20-year-old England international and promise him he'll get to the next international tournament. I'm getting them vibes.
Mate, I was literally about to say it's like regular England starter turned bench warmer for a big London club looking to score a loan move to a mid-tier Premier League side. I mean, I swear I've seen this movie before, right?
We have a type.
Yeah, we do, clearly. But, mate, the numbers are there. I mean, look, this guy is 25 years of age, 109 Premier League appearances for Tottenham, a couple of goals along the way. Feels like he hardly featured in the Premier League last year, doesn't he? But or for Spurs at all last season, really. But he actually played 30 times for them in all comps last year, 15 in the Premier League the last season, 41 appearances all comps. Season before, 41 appearances all comps. I mean, you go back to 2016-17, where the guy was only 20 years old and he's playing 33 games in a season for Spurs. He's a Champions League runner-up, a League Cup runner-up. He's got those England caps that you were talking about as well, mate, 10 of them. You sort of feel that you can't turn your nose up against this kind of player, because you don't get in those positions by chance. You don't fluke your way into almost 200 games for a Champions League club. Like, there's obviously a huge amount of talent there. And I think the one thing that's most interesting about this deal, mate, is I feel that Villa fans have forgotten for me, Dan, that we have Morgan Sanson.
Yeah. I forgot we have Morgan Sanson.
This is what I mean. It's like, I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh yeah, we need a midfield that's comfortable on the ball, that can dribble, that offers something a bit different to Douglas and John McGinn, and you sort of think, yeah, but funnily enough, we have that guy.
We signed him in January.
Yeah, exactly. Morgan Sanson's going to feel like a new player, and I know that Harry Winks is a lot more defensive, but I think Morgan is going to demand a serious role. And I think when you've then got McGinn and Douglas and Nakamba and Winks and sort of Grealish, apparently we're moulding him back into that 10 position. It's then you're surely playing a two-man midfield, and that's a lot of big names to function. Like, we haven't got European football yet, so it's not like we have like we need a squad that big. That's a lot of big names to work into what potentially could end up being a two-man midfield. And so I think Winks is a player that I would have more confidence in reigniting their career than I did with Barkley. I think I would back Harry because I think just given the nature of the role, he can be a little bit safer, a little bit tidier, and naturally sort of gain some confidence that way. Whereas Ross has got to be, confidence is so important to Ross Barkley's game and just to sort of creating chances and operating in that 10 role. So I would have more faith in the Winks signing, but when you consider that it's probably going to be a two-man midfield, to add that big of a name where Spurs are going to want him to play the vast majority of games in a loan deal, you assume. I don't know, mate.
I think for me, it's the role he plays, because I think Villa are clearly looking for not necessarily a replacement, but someone who can provide a bit more competition for Douglas Luiz, because I think we've seen he isn't really a 6. He's more of an 8, that sort of Mezzala role that he's playing in for Brazil right now. He's had a few minutes. He played against Ecuador the other night, I believe it was. Played about 70 minutes there with Casemiro anchoring that midfield. But yeah, Harry Winks is that kind of deep lying playmaker that I think
Someone's been playing FF, haven't they? Someone's been playing
FF. You've got me addicted. But that's the role that Winksy plays, and that's shown in the stats. He attempts an average of 68.33 passes per 90, so he's heavily involved. 6.58 of them progressive passes going forward. 87.7% pass completion rate, Dan. And you've just got to look at the kind of players that FBref have compared him to. The likes of Kevin Campbell, Martin de Roon of Atalanta and Leipzig, respectively. Charles Aranguiz, Oriol Romeu, Granit Xhaka. These guys are deep-lying playmakers. They all have a very important role. You can meme Xhaka all you want. He's been brilliant for Switzerland. They all play a very vital role of not only shielding the back four, but also, they're in charge of bringing their teams forward, respectively. And again, just to kind of highlight that, averaging 1.83 interceptions per 90. Now, in terms of the progressive passes forward compared to Villa players, that's more than Douglas Luiz, it's more than Marvis Nakamba, it's more than Morgan Sanson, and it's more than John McGinn averages per 90 as well, Dan. So I don't think Villa fans could, I think one of the biggest frustrations, Dan, with Villa is sometimes, more so in the second half of last season, we struggled to really get out of our own half at times. It kind of seemed slow and lethargic, and we weren't playing this full sort of beautiful, fluid, counter-attacking game. You need that midfielder who will receive the ball from your centre-half. And, you've just got to look at Villa's passing statistics. Matt Targett and Tyrone Mings are 2 of Villa's top 4 passers in terms of progressive passes forward. So receiving that ball from your defenders is a very understated, underrated facet that our midfield clearly needs to improve upon, Dan.
Yeah, I think that definitely, that ability to take the ball on the turn is probably one of Winks' best abilities. I would say that he's definitely more mobile with the ball than Douglas Luiz is. In terms of progressing the ball physically, in terms of dribbling it as opposed to passing it, you'd probably have him over Douglas in that sense. So there's definitely differences between those two players. And I'm desperate to see Douglas with a 6 behind him. My problem is I'm not sure Winks is the 6 that I'd choose to partner with Douglas. I mean, you look at the way that he plays with the Brazil, and I know it's difficult to sort of take this as an example because obviously with national players, you sort of have to play with what you've got, but they play Luiz with a Fabinho or a Casemiro who are those sort of more physical statures in the midfield. I don't want to use destroyers because I don't think there's ever been a Brazilian player that you can call a destroyer. I mean, it infuriates me. Casemiro isn't. Yes, yeah, there you go. Wes, maybe Sandro from his QPR days, I don't know, maybe fits that bill. But yeah, you sort of feel that he's, I'd like someone. What I want in that midfield, mate, I would like someone with a bit of stature. We need some height in that midfield. I feel that's one of the things that Villa are missing. Just, and unfortunately, you may be the best player in the world, but these physical traits are just something you can't match. So I'd like a sort of 6-foot odd presence that can really disrupt that play and can give Villa that. Because I felt there were points last season where we were overrun against quite physical midfields, and I think we need someone that can stand up to that. And look, I mean, Winks, I'd welcome with open arms. I'd be very excited as a transfer, but I don't know if I'm being a bit picky, but I'd love him as a DM. But there are players I think that I'd like to go and get perhaps just that little bit more that can offer a bit more physically.
Oh, Dean, you can clearly go to the ticket office and get our numbers if you need the physical.
Yeah, we're there. We're there. I mean, these lockdown pounds, mate, if you need a physical presence, I'm there.
We're down, bro. First we need this fucking Gymshark sponsorship, man.
Yeah, I see you repping again, mate.
Where are they at? We're in Gymshark on the podcast until they sponsor us. We're going to make this a thing. But no, I completely agree, mate. It begs the question as well, what does that mean for the likes of Carney and Jacob? I think alone next season probably makes sense for Jacob. But you're seeing Carney with the posts, the video highlights, can't wait for next season. The hard work's already starting. The under-23s were back in training the other day. Pre-season's happening right now. Like,
Yeah.
what? And on that, Douglas Luiz isn't having a pre-season, Dan, because after he's done with the Copa America, he's jetting off to Japan to take part in the Olympics, which is a brilliant achievement for him. But man, we can't be dealing with this Olympics, and then we've got AFCON in February. Like, so recruitment, we've got to consider that a fair bit, to be honest. But no, Harry Winks, I think it's safe to say it's a no from us, Dan, isn't it? I don't really see this one happening. Whether Nuno needs to fund the move for Ruben Neves, so players will be shifted. We'll have to wait and see, but I don't particularly see much in this, and to be honest, much in Cantwell either, Dan. But it's interesting. We've just got to look. 2 years ago, Dan, we signed Danny Drinkwater. We were signing Mbwana Samatta. The caliber of players, the bar has been raised, Dan. So, that's the very least we can say. It's a no from us today on these two, probably. However, I do believe that there will be some smart business coming soon from Villa. But Dan, I think that's probably a good place to end our nice little catch-up podcast. I know people miss it. People love the Villa filler, and that makes me happy, Dan, because we've been doing this for a long time. And I think we just passed 4,300. I think we're closing on 4,400 subs now, which is mental. So if we can get to 5K before the season starts, which is soon, like it's soon. I can't believe how quick this is coming around. I think as well, I saw on Twitter that Premier League clubs have been given the green light to have full stadiums come August time as well. Amazing news. So yeah, I mean, I managed to move the season ticket now. Lower Holte. I think we mentioned this on the last podcast. So finally, heart of the Holte. We're no longer frauds. So yeah, that's it, man. There's a lot of exciting things to come. It's been a bit quiet regarding Villa. I mean, we should probably talk about the kit leak, Dan. What do we think on that before we go? Well, I mean, it's I don't know.
All I say on kit leaks every single year, mate, is give me Jack Grealish in it. I'll make my mind up.
That'll never happen, though.
Yeah, it's
to just scare the fan base even more.
No, just wait until you see it on the players on that first match day. It always looks good. I've got to be honest, I wasn't really that convinced. Do you remember they did that sort of CGI mock-up of the kit to release it this year? Do you remember that? It was like this really weird. I don't know why they did it, but they sort of mocked it up, and I was like, oh my God, what is that? And then you sort of see it on the first match day, and you're like, oh, it was a really nice kit. So you can never really know. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one, but they always grow on you. We'll wait and see.
If if anything special happens, the kit instantly becomes iconic anyway, Dan. So.
Exactly.
A potential run for European football, and we've got an iconic kit on our hands. But yeah, that's our thoughts on that. That's our thoughts on Todd Cantwell, and that is our thoughts on the Euros. So if you guys did enjoy this podcast, please hit the like button, comment your thoughts below. How do you think England will fare against Ukraine? Let us know your thoughts on the kit as well. I don't think Kappa could get that badge further up on the shoulder if they tried, man. It seems like it's budging up like centimeters every season. And if you aren't subscribed, because there's 55% of you guys that are watching this podcast right now that aren't subscribed. So if you aren't, just hit the button, hit the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a podcast. It would mean the most to me. It would mean the most to Dan as well. And it would really help us with our growth, with our challenge to get to 5K before Watford away. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.